That's great. I'm going to talk a little bit about LaTeX here. I'd rather I wasn't doing this. I did, I'm afraid, at short notice. I did invite the LaTeX team to come, but I haven't had a response, and it was short notice, so they can be forgiven. LaTeX has its roots in PDF before PDF existed, in the sense that PDF in the first instance was a means of producing things on paper, and it was a sort of cleaned up and improved version of PostScript. It was a version of PDF that would put a version of PostScript that would work well, and that's where TeX had its roots. TeX had its roots in putting black marks on a white sheet of paper, basically. I think that's all very familiar. But what's happened now is that computing devices have become considerably more powerful. And instead of previewing a printed document on a computer screen and maybe zooming in so you can actually see what's happening, the preview has become the real document itself. Often stuff isn't, I read things without printing. Sometimes I print, sometimes I don't, but it's now a reasonable experience to read documents from printed sources on the computer screen. And the other thing that's really happened since then is accessibility and HTML and all that stuff that you're all familiar with. Now, maybe I'm laboring this all a bit, but LaTeX has these roots in that previous time where computers were a way of driving a typesetting engine, if you like. And I'm exaggerating a bit there, but forgive me. Now, what's happened is that the LaTeX team have seen the importance of accessibility and of the accessibility standard for PDF. So one of the constraints, for example, is that governments say if you provide PDFs, it must be accessible. I'm not clear on exactly what the law says about that, but there are requirements about producing accessible PDFs. And I believe that Microsoft meets those requirements, and LaTeX as it stands doesn't. So that's a bit of a problem for LaTeX, if you like. And they formed a resolution to deal with this problem. And that's really what I'm going to talk about. And they published an article in Tugboat around the end of last year, and I'm going to paraphrase part of it. So this is my paraphrase from their Tugboat article from volume 3 last year, number 3 last year. An enormous amount of work is urgently needed for LaTeX to remain an important and relevant document source format. Now, they said that in the context of encouraging people to support the work, and they have got a promise of funding, not promise, sorry, there's promise as in it's a promising student, and there's promise as in I will do this. So there's been hope that Adobe will provide funding, and the strategic purpose of this is that they have set up an Adobe Document Cloud. There's a file hosting system for PDF. So they wish for PDFs to be a major form of document interchange for electronic documents. And the first 2 gigabytes is free. So it's free for individuals effectively. And I assume, I've only just learned about this today because I'm behind in reading these things. I could have learned about it some time ago. I assume that there'll be all sorts of other benefits, both to you and to Adobe, for putting your documents up in the Adobe Cloud. And so just as YouTube requires videos to be successful, so the Adobe Document Cloud requires PDF documents to be accessible, and Adobe and LaTeX is a good way of producing PDF documents, but the Adobe Cloud is more valuable, quite rightly, if the documents in it are accessible. So that's the social side of it, if you like, which is for LaTeX to remain an important, relevant document source format. And I'm representing not my views, but I'm trying to represent the views of the LaTeX 3 team when I say that. LaTeX needs to solve the problem of producing accessible PDFs, and that's a big amount of work. And I've also explained the reason for that. With this group of people, I don't think I need to explain why it is a large amount of work to extend LaTeX to provide accessibility. In a nutshell, it amounts to this: that when LaTeX is processing ordinary text, it does nothing. It doesn't stand between the typesetting engine, and the input file. The input file essentially goes straight through into TeX. And if you need to capture stuff as that goes through, then LaTeX isn't set up to do that. So to go to what Rob Beasley did, what Rob has talked about, Rob says, well, our markup system allows us to say this is the mathematics, and anything that is mathematics we send through to this different system. And you're able to do that because you've written in XML and you have processing tools and so forth. Whereas LaTeX can't say, this is a piece of text. Before it gets to the typesetting stage, I want you to do things with it. LaTeX never did that capability, or if it did, it was sort of really screwy things, and that's what the macros are all about. So that's roughly where we are with LaTeX. So we have two systems, both which are focused on accessibility. LaTeX has got the big benefit of, it's the system that users are used to using. Pretext has got the unique selling point that it produces Braille output. One could produce a table to say here are all the benefits and so forth.